Well, as you might have gathered from our intro, this is Coffee Breaks with Steve's Halloween episode. Yes, we're a few days early, but by the time we get to next week's show, Halloween will be over. So we're celebrating starting today. There's nothing wrong with that. You're going to meet a couple from Seattle whose house has become not just a neighborhood attraction, but an entire community attraction for the amazing things that they have been adding to and putting around their house over the last several years. They've even been written up in the Seattle Times as one of the key houses that people should check out during the Halloween season. So look, we're looking forward to that. Put on the brakes, grab a cup of coffee, and join the conversation because it's time for a special Halloween edition of Coffee Breaks with Steve. Well, welcome to Coffee Breaks with Steve. My name is Steve, and this is the show where we come together around our virtual coffee table each week and join the conversation to chat about interesting topics with amazing guests. If you're joining us for the first time today, welcome. And if you've been with us before, welcome back. And yes, everybody drink. Let's go ahead and do that. It is our Halloween episode. Just going to take a quick look at who may be on here already. I see Rick is here. Kathy is here. Good morning. Hey from Kathy. And I am wearing a Halloween shirt today. Getting started early, but this one has the best of all worlds. It celebrates Halloween, and there's also a gnome. So what more could we ask for? How's everybody doing? As we are now definitely into the fall season, no doubt about it. And we're coming up now. This is kind of the what I call the avalanche or the snowball effect toward the idea that we are going to be getting into the holiday season now. So, from here we get to I guess the Thanksgiving season comes up next. What else is coming up? We have Veterans Day, if you celebrate that, which I will be this year, and we'll talk about that in another couple of weeks. But Veterans Day happens in November, and we get it to Thanksgiving in the United States, and then just rolling full speed into the rest of the holiday season, where depending on what you like to celebrate, you've got Christmas, you've got Kwanzaa, you've got my mind. I need more of this today. My brain is not coming up with any specific things. Words is the word I was looking for. Anyway, if you're here, do make sure that you say hello and take part in the conversation today. We are monitoring the chat, and so we do ask that all comments be appropriate and tied to the show today. Hanukkah, thank you, Shalane. I don't know why. I think I was up late last night, and to be perfectly honest, I was finishing editing for today's show. Just one of those, the chat just had a lot of elements, and our guests provided me with a ton. And if I weighed them, it probably would come down to that. Photos and videos to complement the conversation. And I just had to go through going through so many of those to make sure I was utilizing the right ones, and could only use a small fraction of them. Hello, Shalane. Listening on one device, typing on another. Sure, that multitasking is okay. Kim Baker's here. Good meowing afternoon and happy Catterday. The Facebook feed is glitching badly. Hopefully that's not happening from our end. Oh, you got it sorted out. Okay. Yeah, the brain is glitching. Listen, that could be part of the reason that your Facebook acted like it was glitching, Kim. It could have been actually my brain trying to deglitchify. Is everybody, what are your plans? Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. Let me get to our sweet and savory so that we can talk about a couple of things. And the first thing, of course, is Halloween. Good. All right, but you're here now. Good. Okay, our guests are here. That was Tatiana Kaminsky who was commenting. And so we always love it when our guests can join live and be in the chat, because then they can address questions and comments. And I can guarantee this was a long conversation, and I had to edit it down for time. We would have been going an hour or better today. But even with that, I would be quite confident in saying that you're going to have some questions for Mark and Tatiana, and feel free, please, as we get into our conversation today, to ask your questions in the chat, because they can respond quickly because they're here. That's always a good thing. All right, listen, what are your plans for Halloween? Is that something that you celebrate? Are you in a neighborhood where kids come around? And if so, what do you hand out? I know people who just do the standard, go to the store, buy a bag of mixed candy, or maybe you have a specific type of candy, or maybe you do something different. I saw recently somebody who got the little, you can get the little rings, that they give out as like party favors that light up and blink, and they hand those out. I know of someone else who traditionally would hand out an actual like can of soft drink soda. I don't even know how you manage to do that. But just what do you hand out if you give out candy? What do you typically like to focus on? And if you don't do that, like our neighborhood, we're in kind of an interesting neighborhood. There are families with kids here, but there aren't that many. It's mostly an older group that lives in our community here. And even though houses and the condos up the hill are all pretty close together, the first year I think we were here and had candy for Halloween, I think later in the evening we had some older kids, even teenagers, stop by. The year after that, we were not even home at Halloween. We were out of town, and so who knows. And then last year we had candy. Not one trick-or-treater came to our door. So we're kind of trying to figure out this year. Right now, the forecast in Spokane is that it's likely to be raining. We're not necessarily expecting any kids to come to the door, but the question is, do we get some candy just in case? Which then, if it doesn't, no trick-or-treaters come, Carol and I are munching candy. Don't need to be doing that. So we may just turn the porch light off and then watch some fun, scary movies or something. I don't know what we'll do, but I'm curious about some of your plans, and I'm seeing some things on here. Carissa put down here, our director, Carissa, in her town, they do a Halloween parade. Yes, costumes. When we were living, this is what's fun. When we were in California a few years ago, we were living in an apartment complex that had like a big park in the middle of the apartment complex and a big courtyard and a number of buildings. And they would do things like every now and then the managers would sponsor a little get together with a barbecue and stuff over by the swimming pool. And every year that we were there for Halloween, they did a little costume parade. And when our grandsons were visiting us for Halloween, we'd take them down there to do that. We have pictures and video from a few years back of doing that. That's always fun when the community gets together to do something. Loving your comments on here. Let's see. I'm looking to see a bunch of election day happens where there's a bunch of leftover candy around, Tatiana says. Right. And again, Tracy Whitney is here. Hi, Tracy. Good to see you here. Carla, did I already say hi to Carla? I'm not sure that I did. Do say hi to us. I'm trying to keep up with the comments in the chat. We'll try to say hello to everybody. And definitely, once we get into our conversation, we want to hear from everyone. If you do you dress up for Halloween? You can see that I've got Halloween attire, and I am wearing socks that complement the shirt. I'm not going to lift my foot up here to show you on camera. I'll probably post some things on my Facebook page later. You can go there and look. But I do have an entirely different Halloween shirt to wear Friday on Halloween. But this is the one I'm wearing today because we are celebrating Halloween. Curious about what you do. Do you host a party? Do you go to a party? Do you sit down and watch scary movies? If you have a favorite scary movie to watch for Halloween or any time, what is your favorite movie? Or maybe it's a TV series that you like to go back and watch that would be related to this season. Let us know in the chat what you like to do. What else? I wanted to share this one with you. This was one that Carol told me about this last week. She learned about that there's been some studies done that saying, and this is particularly for women, although I'm sure it applies to men as well, but for older adults, walking just 4,000 steps 1 to 2 days a week may help older women live longer. A new study suggests that even modest movement can make a big difference for older women. Now, there's been a lot of studies over the years that say you don't have to be killing yourself with exercise to be healthy. Modest movement, anything is better than nothing. But this study says that researchers at Mass General Brigham in England found that taking just 4,000 steps once or twice a week was linked to a 26% lower risk of death and a 27% lower risk of heart disease compared to women who took fewer steps. Now, when they say, risk of death, obviously everybody dies sometime. I think they're talking about premature death here. The study followed more than 13,000 women with an average age of 72, tracking their step counts for a week and then monitoring their health over the next decade. The results showed that it's the total number of steps that matters most, not how often or how regularly they're taken. In other words, whether those steps come from a few long walks or short bursts of activity throughout the week, the benefits are similar. Researchers say, wait a minute, try that sentence again. Researchers say the findings offer a realistic, achievable goal for older adults. Just getting out and moving, even a little, can lead to a longer, healthier life. So let's move. I went for a walk yesterday evening. Carol and I have been getting out and walking more frequently, and we don't have to walk a ton. We're not killing ourselves to do it, but we're getting out there and moving. And I have an app on my phone that while I'm walking, I can track how far I'm walking, how long I've been out there. And it even gives me my heart rate along the way. And in our neighborhood, when we walk in our neighborhood, we've got hills and then it evens out and we're going downhill and stuff. And so getting your cardio up, I can get my cardio up a bit and that kind of thing. So I just find walking is such an easy thing to do. If you can do it, you should do it. Anyway, I think it's good for all of us. And I'm curious about whether you have any regimens that you do. And do you go for walks? Do you do something different? When I was younger, I used to run. I don't have a runner's physique. I was never like a sprint runner. I would do some 5K distances, even longer, and never fast. I don't have a huge, long stride. But back in those days, when I was, we're talking 20, 25 years ago, when I was still relatively young. But anyway, I'm curious about what types of things you like to do to get out there and get your body moving. Let us know that in the chat as well. We got a lot of things that you can let us know about in the chat. But one birthday I wanted to mention this week that we had on our calendar, Sid Niemeyer, who's been on the show before. He's an author and a physicist. And he's actually getting ready to release his second book. We're looking forward to hopefully having Sid back on the show sometime in the next few months to talk about that. But Sid is celebrating a birthday this next week, October 27th. So happy birthday, Sid. Hope you have a great day. Did I miss something? Do you have a special day this week? A birthday, an anniversary, something else that you want us to celebrate with you? Put it in the chat right now, so that we can acknowledge you, so we can celebrate with you. I'm trying to keep track of the chat. Oh, wow. Kim's talking about a 30-pound weighted vest and do an hour a day on the treadmill with it. Okay. That's got to be making a difference. You got to feel that one for sure, Kim. That's good to stay healthy. Anyway, do you have a special day this week? Put it in the chat. You have a special day coming up, maybe between now and the end of the year, or even sometime next year, that you'd like to make sure we get on our calendar. You can send us an email at cbwsteve@comcast.net. You see it right there on your screen right now. And we will make sure that we get that on the calendar and that we celebrate with you. We do check those emails on a continual basis. I'm constantly in there looking at the emails to make sure I'm not missing something from part of our brew crew. That's you. You're the brew crew. I'm just trying to get used to saying that and having the words come out of my mouth so it doesn't sound like a tongue twister. All right, listen, I want to let you know a little bit about our guests and introduce them to you. They are, you're going to learn all about the way they celebrate Halloween and the things that they have done to their residence, their house, their home, to make it a place that is a beacon for Halloween, not just in their neighborhood, but throughout their community and throughout their region. They've been written up in the news about it, and I've gotten a lot of publicity about this, and they are seeing the results of that in some very special ways that you're going to learn about. Let me tell you about them very quickly. When not prepping their house for Halloween, this is, by the way, this is Tatiana Kaminsky and Mark Hill. They're in the chat today. When not prepping the house for Halloween, Tatiana works as an occupational therapist in acute care at Swedish Medical Center, First Hill in Seattle. Mark works as a director of research studying treatments for cancer at Bristol Myers Squibb. They've been married for 21 years after meeting on the dance floor, which is probably, we didn't talk about this during our conversation. Maybe they'll put something in the chat to explain that one. Mark and Tatiana have 2 teenagers who are only occasionally embarrassed by them, and 1 socially awkward rescue dog. So here now is our conversation with Mark Hill and Tatiana Kaminsky. Mark and Tatiana, welcome to Coffee Breaks with Steve, and thank you for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yes, it's great to be here.
So we gave a little bit of a background intro and a little bit of what you've been doing, but I think about this and I go, okay, you didn't just wake up one day and go, hey, I think we should just really decorate our house and our yard for Halloween. Or maybe you did, but I'm curious about the origins of making your home a must visit location for Halloween trick or treaters.
So we bought our house 21 years ago, and I, grew up in the United States. Halloween was always super fun. It was really important to me. I'll let Mark talk about his history with Halloween. But I was very excited. We had our house. We were going to get trick or treaters. And, we had the candy. We were all ready. And we got like 5 kids because
Yeah.
our street doesn't have sidewalks. And so all the kids tend to go a few blocks south where the sidewalks are, which makes sense. And I think at that point, I was like on a mission to make it where we would get trick or treaters. And so we were gradually adding, we'd add like a couple things a year to decorate the yard. When we had kids who were old enough, we'd all go and everybody got to choose one thing, and we would, just gradually increase it. And then the pandemic hit, and sort of through boredom and a desire to connect with other humans, shoved us off the cliff of reasonableness. And that's really where we started to spiral a little bit out of control. And we started, so we were using our driveway. Before 2020, we didn't use the driveway. But that year we used the driveway. We had the kids come down and we had the candy chute out of the dining room window. And we added a mural of Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah.
And Mark got your gargoyle was that year.
Yeah, I think I got a gargoyle that year that I'd been looking at online for a number of years and decided it was time to go for it. So
yeah. And it was fun and kids were excited, but I was stuck by the candy chute the whole time. And I like people. I like interacting with people and talking with people and seeing the kids in their costumes. And so the next year I said, well, the candy chute was fun, and I looked at Mark and I was just like, and you can say no. He said, okay, because that's always the, what crazy idea does my wife have? And I said, I was thinking we could have a fully automated candy chute. And he's like, I don't know how I would do that. And I said, well, here's an instruction thing online. So then he made it.
Yep.
Wow.
And then we've been adding every year. And it's just kind of become this thing. And so now we are absolutely a place to go, and we get many more than 5 kids. I started so I have a little free library, which I've had for well over a decade. And I love books. I love reading, and Mark loves reading. We're just a reading family. And so, with the library, I was like, hey, wouldn't it be fun to give away books in addition to candy on Halloween? So I started giving books away, and we were trying to remember what year it was. It was pre-pandemic. I'm going to say it was like 2016, 2017, something like that. I had books just up at the door.
Yeah, that's right. You would hand out books with the candy when kids came forward. They were all kind of surprised, but most of them pretty happy to take a book as well. So
yeah, and then they would say, "Can I take one from my sibling, or can I take one from my friend, or how many can I take?" And my response to how many can I take is as many as you and your grown-up are willing to carry. So I'm like, if you start taking armloads, you're going to need to talk to the grown-up with you, because I know who's going to end up carrying these books.
Yeah.
2020, we didn't have the books because, none of us knew how COVID was spreading. And so, we were sanitizing everything. And so I didn't have books. And so we brought the books back in 2022. And then we had like a tent. So now we have a book tent. And we gave that year, I wrote it down, we gave away 150 books.
And which year was this?
That was 2022.
Okay.
We gave away 150. 2023, it was 177. And last year was 202, but it was pouring with rain.
Goodness.
So this year Halloween's on a Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not raining, I'll be very curious. I had over 1,000 books. I think I had like 1,100 books, everywhere from board books through young adults. And then in 2023, we also added a fundraiser for a local charity. So the charity is called Page Ahead, because again, we're pretty community minded. I like supporting, nonprofits and local charities. And so originally I was thinking, oh, maybe we could raise money for the food bank. But then I thought, well, the books are such a thing that I wonder if there's a way we can tie into that. So I started researching and I found Page Ahead, and they've been around a long time. They're a very well-rated charity, and they collect books to give to low-income kids and kids who don't have access to books. And so it seemed like a really good partnership. And so we've done that for 2 years, and between the 2 years, we've raised over $2,000.
Oh.
One of the things that I want to do for this coming year is figure out a way to make our fundraiser more obvious, because a lot of people don't realize that we have it. So that's one of my goals.
Yeah.
All right. So that's kind of the story, but I'll let Mark tell you a little bit about his background with Halloween, because it was different from mine.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in England, but we didn't really have Halloween as a regular holiday when I was growing up. And I really didn't start getting more involved in Halloween until I moved to Seattle. Well, no, but prior to that, I probably did. So in the States, I definitely gained an understanding of Halloween parties and dressing up in costumes and so on. So, when we had our own home, it was obviously something that was very important to T, but I like dressing up. I love this idea of having this holiday time. The candy thing is a big plus. It really is a very interactive experience for people. One of the things about the environment that we create is that we have this little walkthrough where people can walk through and experience different things, whether it's the mural, whether it's a scary, science lab, crazy skeleton, or a drop spider that comes out, or a jumping spider that attacks people, or just a conversation with the gargoyle. It's sort of, the goal is to get people engaging with what we have. And there's a lot of detail in the sort of presentation of what we have. I think that, some kids rush through it and don't really notice just everything, only the flashing lights and the moving skeletons. But, other people stop and take time to look at the little dioramas that we have. And we have little gags and jokes within the dioramas. And it, so people can interact with it in different ways. And, we have generated a following. As T said early on, there were very few people coming by. I think we were the only house on our street who also had Halloween displays up. So that didn't encourage others to come here. But now we have a 16-foot ghost who advertises our presence on the corner of our driveway. And so anybody walking by the end of our street can see there's a Halloween house here.
Yeah.
And then they come down and then they get the experience. And every year we have people who come by now and say, we just had to come by and see what new stuff you have this year. So now the trouble is that the expectations are there. So
yeah,
we have to keep on thinking of new things that we're going to do.
We don't have a problem with thinking of new things.
We can always think of new things. It's finding the time to do it.
Right. Well, I mean, if the bar, I mean, that's the thing with something like this. Every year the bar is raised, right?
Yeah, it is. So
yeah. And we certainly have added, like every year we've added, and we've added complexity, which is a double-edged sword. It makes it fun for the people visiting, but it can be a little challenging on our side. So we have projection throughout. Mm-hmm. So we have a projection. We have like a fireplace with a mantle as part of the drive in our driveway walk, and we have above it, we have projection. We have a fortune teller with a crystal ball with projection. Actually, I have to remake the crystal ball because last year after Halloween, I was picking up the ball and it broke in my hand. So on election day, I was actually in the ER getting like re-glued. And we have some projection that's by the house. And then last year, Mark added moving parts with a skeleton.
Right.
So it stands up and it talks. And then there's a little box with a little skeleton that sits up. And then the skeleton goes back down. And so that was him and one of our best friends who's now roped in.
Right.
Yeah.
We try and create a little story in each part of the experience that people can sort of get engaged in some way. And then it is incredible how the books are really a big attraction. You know, I can distinctly remember this group of high schoolers coming down the street, and they kind of enjoyed the whole, walkway through and getting to the candy, but then they were stuck in the book tent for like half an hour just checking out the books, because there were all kinds of books there, and the little kids love the board books and will definitely spend time in the book tent. So it's just a different experience. And I think it's a little less intense than some of the Halloween streets where they have just so much going on. It's just crazy all the time. And, it's just, candy after candy after candy, and it's just nuts. But our street is still fairly mellow. There are a few houses that have candy out now, probably 4 or 5, I think.
Maybe about half of the street.
About half of the street now. So that's good, but it's not a really crazy street. So I think some of the kids, can find a little space in the book tent if they want to decompress for a bit, and then they can come out and go back and start candy gathering down the street as they go.
Yeah, we also try to keep like the walkway up to the candy chute. We try to keep that pretty mild, so we don't have things that jump out and stuff like that. That kind of stuff we reserve for the walkway through the driveway.
Right.
So when we do have parents with littler ones, we are like, walk through first before you take your kiddo, and make sure that they're going to be okay, because there are things that drop and jump and scream at you, and that's definitely, and as our children have gotten older, that's gotten also, I think, a little bit more mature. But I just wanted to go back to the books because there's a fantastic story that I love. When our older kid was in high school, a freshman in high school, the day after Halloween, they go to school and they were sitting in the class and they were listening. And this girl was saying, I went to this house and they were giving away books. And our kid went, I think that was my house. And this other kid was like, where do you live? And so they kind of compared notes, and turns out, yes, it was our house. And so this kid looks at our kid and goes, your mom is the Halloween book lady? And I'm like, if all I'm ever known for in my life is being the Halloween book lady, I feel like that's a life well lived.
That's nice. That's nice. You were talking about roping in a friend, and I'm curious about a couple of things here. First of all, as this has grown, I mean, I kind of make an assumption that when this first got underway, it was just the two of you putting your heads together and saying, what can we do to do something with our house? But over the years, as it has grown, does it remain mostly just the two of you planning and putting this together? Who else has been involved? Or have there been other, as your kids have gotten older, do they participate? And what's really, how many hours do you think goes into this? You start, by the time we show this, now we're recording this quite a bit before, like 3 months before Halloween is when this is being recorded, just for the sake of transparency to viewers, because it starts to get busy for you well before Halloween. And I'm just curious about how the lead up to this takes place, what's happening in the planning process and in the actually putting together process. And do you just do this by yourselves, or do you enlist some help?
We do it largely, the two of us really put the ideas and decide on where things are going to go and how it's going to fit together. And again, it is incremental each year. So we have an idea right now of where most things are going to go, right? We have it all packed away in a storage unit. We'll pull it out, put it together. I'll start putting up the tarpaulin that covers our driveway and creates the walk area with a water. It provides, shelter from the weather. I'll put that up in mid-August, probably.
No, we usually put that up at the beginning of October.
No, I put that up in September last year.
Did you?
Yeah,
We
normally is
started-
it's up for at least six weeks.
Yeah, we start in earnest putting stuff out like October 1. And we have a kid down the street who has grown up with us. I think he's like 6-7 years old now.
Yeah, a little
But
older now. But
He and his dad come by like every day to see the progress.
Right.
And I think he probably went through the walkway about 25 times last Halloween. He's definitely our biggest fan. And so we kind of run ideas by him, I think, is like he's starting to be a consultant. But they say we know it's October when we start seeing stuff going out. So, the day after Halloween, we actually have a spreadsheet and we put things on the spreadsheet like, okay, these need to be repaired. This has to be streamlined. That didn't work. So,
and are you already then brainstorming for additional things that within that timeframe as well? You're already planning ahead
throughout the whole year. We had to replace the cover on the driveway this year, so I actually built that whole thing last month and put it all up to make sure it'll all work, and then put it away again, so that now I know it can be put up fairly quickly. Mm-hmm. And it is a lot of work. There's a weekend every year when I think we are never going to get this done.
And he always says, we're not doing this next year.
We're not doing this next year. I can't believe that I'm still doing this. This is crazy. Things aren't working the way they should, and I'm just desperate. And that, I think, last year was when our friends took a little pity on us, and I was like, can you help with this? Can you help with that? And they said, oh, sure. And they were starting to get into it. So I'm hoping that they will not have been deterred after last year's experience. I think they're good to do it again this year.
No, I mean, our friend Ethan is already talking about, and we can add this and we can add this. So they've been roped in. Our children do help. Okay. But we have a little bit of a backwards relationship in our household where the kids are like the voice of reason and the parents are like, so the children have forbidden us from having a fire-breathing dragon on the roof of our house. And we are still thinking about how we could possibly make that happen. And they keep saying, no, you can't have a fire-breathing dragon on the roof. And we're like, what could go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong?
So they definitely help. I mean, they do help, and they kind of come up with ideas, but in some ways I feel like they tolerate us.
They have had to put up with this and deal with the reality.
They definitely put up with it. And they're good sports about it, but I don't think it's, they don't have the same engagement that we do.
When you have a project like this, I mean, I'm just thinking out loud here that there must be, from a budget standpoint, there are, even when you're doing a lot of handmade, homemade stuff, there has to be a certain amount that you have to set aside each year from a budget standpoint to be buying things, creating things. I don't know how much extra electricity or other, utilities may go into some of this, but do you find it to be something that you've now had to plan your budget for, or does it pretty much fit into other things that you can plan for throughout the year?
I think because we've added gradually and we do reuse a lot of components, we also do things like the day after Halloween, we go and shop for all the stuff that's marked down on clearance. Yeah. And so we do that. And like the books, those are almost exclusively donated. Okay. So some of it's like books that our children have outgrown. And so those get put into the mix. But our local Buy Nothing group has given us a lot of books. We now have multiple people in the neighborhood who know that we do this. And so they will reach out and go, hey, do you need books? And so, we like almost all the books are free. Sometimes if I have gaps, it's usually like the board books and the young adult books. Those are the ones where I usually am missing some. I'll go to thrift stores and things like that. So you know, we do try and like repurpose things and use stuff that we find, or I think the bigger issue as far as resources is space. So we broke down a couple years ago and got a storage unit. It's not a big storage unit, but it's already pretty packed. And so I think some of it's like, okay, when we're like last year, I was in a store and it had this like 7-foot tall animatronic plague doctor, and it was really cool. And I took a little video clip and I sent it to my husband, and I was like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if time and money and space were like not an issue ever? We could get this. And he's like, oh, that's not as much as I thought it was. It's a good deal. And I'm like, what happened? This marriage. And I'm like, we don't have any place to store it. We have a storage unit. I'm like, which is full. And he's like, we can get a bigger storage unit. I'm like, what happened to you?
And where is my husband? Who is this person? Yeah.
We did not buy it.
Right.
Okay.
So
Well,
I have thought about it for the last year and going,
we are also fairly full just in our front yard. We don't have a big front yard. We're not a big house. So we're getting pretty packed with just all the stuff that we have. That's why we're thinking about the roof, what we can put on the roof at this point. So, you know, we've covered the front, high windows in the front, and we've got a lot of stuff going on. There is probably room for a few more things here and there.
Yeah.
But not a lot of room anymore.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's more, I think a lot of it is fine tuning. So, yes, it does cost money, but it's been gradual over you know, especially the last like 5-6 years.
Some of the interactive stuff requires sort of electronic components that, you know, cost a couple of $100. And again, started with one, now have more than one, but, you know, just buy one a year and that's a spend. And then skeletons are, you know, not that expensive. A lot of stuff we make ourselves.
And when the skeletons fall apart, we just use their pieces. So we have dismembered skeletons. So, you know, we don't really have to like get rid of a lot of stuff.
Right.
And it is a lot of, you know, DIY things that we do too. So, and that does help with the money piece. As far as the time, we don't track. Yeah. Because I think we would probably go, why are we doing this?
Why are we doing this? Yeah.
Look at all the stuff we could be doing with our lives. But I mean, we love it. We enjoy it. And on Halloween itself, when you have all the people and people are so excited by what we've put together, it really does make it worth it. This year, again, because Halloween's on a Friday, we were talking about having things up and running, not only Halloween itself, but the day after to kind of like, again, it's just a lot of work for a really short period of time. Right. And so that we can just, you know, have more people who can enjoy it. And we talked about, I don't know if Mark remembers that we talked about this, like if we can get everything pulled together the weekend before, having 2 weekends, but given how we're usually like jam-packed and scrambling, that may not happen. We'll see.
Yeah.
Do you remember that conversation?
I do remember that conversation. I didn't think this year it'll happen.
You may have been trying to filter that one out, T. You know?
It's right.
I'm just curious. You talked about some of the things, Mark, that you have put together, and you have managed to, you know, the automation to the candy chute and just the designing aspects. What is it in each of your backgrounds, from a professional or even a hobby standpoint, that has given you the skill sets to plan, create, and put this type of display together?
Well, when I was growing up as a kid, I was interested in electronics and computers and robotics. You know, I built a little ultrasonic control robot that wandered around the floor when I was like 14 or 15. So that sort of sense of having that interactive and that electronics background I've had forever. So it was fairly easy to think about having some of these interactive things going on. And then the sort of costume part and the Halloween part, you know, comes from, you know, T and that sort of, you know, put those two together, and we have, you know, lots of opportunity for us to build stuff. But it certainly doesn't reflect on my professional background or expertise. But I generally like fiddling around with, you know, stuff like this. I'm not a particularly skilled craftsman at any level, but I can figure out how to, you know, put some pieces of wood together to build a frame for a fireplace. I can figure out how to, you know, wire up a little electronic circuit to make, you know, the gargoyle speak when somebody approaches it, and, you know, all those kinds of things. So there's lots of tools online now as well. It makes it a lot easier, obviously. And that's kind of where it comes from. But I've always enjoyed doing that kind of thing. So.
And T, what about you? I mean, do you have like an artistic background, or are you mostly the person who creates the honey-do lists and says, all right, Mark, here's what else we're going to need?
You know, it's funny. My sister is an artist, and I think when you grow up with a sibling who's super good at something, you kind of go, okay, that's their thing. I am actually a really creative person. I get paid sort of to be creative, but I'm in healthcare, and so kind of doing a lot of problem solving. But as far as like the artistic side of things, that was much later in my life. Mm-hmm. But typically the way it works, I mean, it really is a partnership. Mark takes care of a lot of the like technological side of things, though not all, because I've done a lot of the projection is me. And I'm certainly pretty capable with that kind of stuff. But as far as like the building of the big infrastructure stuff, that's typically him. My things are more of like the little details. All the detail stuff tends to come from me. Mm-hmm. So, you know, like I started making these dioramas, again, partly because of space. Like we don't have a lot more room to put things. So I make these little dioramas because they're small. And so we can just put them in different places. And so, you know, I buy like models or I create things and I put in so much detail. So I just have little things hidden in there. So lots of references to like pop culture and stuff we've read. So it's definitely a partnership. And, you know, the kids help too. The very first diorama I did it was a kit that was like a bedroom set, like one of these models. Mm-hmm. And then we just hauntified it. So, you know, it has like splash marks and things and stuff is burned and like there's bloody handprints and like a creature in the window. And the kids helped me with a lot of things like, how can we make this horrible? And so
kids are good at that, aren't they?
They are. And so, yeah, I think it's very much like it's a joint effort. It's not really one or the other. It's really both of us. And we do problem solving. I do a fair amount of, hey, I have this idea. And then Mark, like the candy shoot. And Mark's like, oh, let me figure out how to make that happen.
Make that work.
I mean, one of the dioramas I made last year was a Barbie seance. And so I said, I need to make this Barbie's head spin in a circle, like all the way around. And you know it's love when your spouse doesn't go, what are you talking about? Which direction and how fast?
How many RPMs do we need on this?
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. Well, Mark and T, as we wrap up here today, first of all, I want to thank you again for taking the time to join us on Coffee Breaks with Steve. As people are considering, and maybe people in the Seattle area, or as you said, you know, they could be within driving distance. Can you give us a little bit of an idea? I don't know that you necessarily want to give out your home address, but what neighborhood people can find you and where they can come if they want to check out your house and your display for Halloween.
Yeah, we are in the Maple Leaf neighborhood in Seattle. So it's in the northeast area, kind of near Northgate. Our cross streets are Roosevelt and 97th, and at Halloween time, you can't walk by our house and not notice us. So
you'll find it. If you're in that area, you'll find it. Well, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to share. We look forward to seeing what 2025's Halloween will bring. We wish you great haunts and clear skies this year for it, and look forward to getting maybe a report afterward about how everything went this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest reports we can give are the book numbers and the fundraising. So
Good. We'll look forward to hearing from you about that. Thanks once again.
all right,
Right,
thank you.
All right. Great conversation. I don't know what's going on with my lighting here. I think it's because it's getting darker outside. That just looks weird. Maybe it fits for the theme because I kind of look orange and Halloweenish here. So we're just going to let it ride for now. Yeah, that was a great conversation. Tatiana and Mark, thank you as well for being in here, taking part in the chat. There were some, I think, great questions and comments. And again, there was so much. I say thank you again, Tatiana. I reached out a couple of different times, said, can you provide me with some pictures and some videos from what you've done over the years? And they just gave me links to just a ton of stuff. And I had so much stuff downloaded. And then in editing this, it's like, what do I use? What do I have time to integrate in? And there was a lot more. So my recommendation would be that you get to Seattle this Friday. I don't care what the weather is. And get out to the neighborhood. We posted those neighborhood directions out here. Yeah, and I see Kim said, would you be able to post pics of your finished product this year on the Coffee Breaks with Steve page so we can see? I'll leave that up to Tatiana and Mark. We will be doing follow-up. They may have some stuff they can share with us. They may have some stuff they can put up on their own Facebook page. Tatiana has a Facebook page where she does post updates on what they're decorating their house, but it's a lot tied to her crafts that she does as well. And so the lighting is perfect. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the lighting. We'll worry about that later. I feel like somehow it works. But we will, here, let's do this. I don't know that that's better, but anyway, hey, I do want to share some things that are going to be coming up in the next few weeks. We've got some great things planned, really coming up and taking us through pretty much the remainder of 2025. So take a look at this.
Like 20% is your personality and your character, and then 80% is work. So it's a little bit also for me like with sport, yes, but so we need the very skilled body to play the piano, especially like the whole body, because we see that pianist is playing with fingers, but the fingers are the end of the whole machine, yes, which is playing. So the whole body is involved in playing.
So once again, just so much coming up, and you saw the little slide on there, the little page that said, do you have ideas about topics or guests you'd want to recommend? Tatiana and Mark were here because Chelan knew Tatiana from working together at Pacific Northwest University. And so many of our guests, so many of our topics come from you, the Brew Crew. You, the Brew Crew. I love that. So please, if you have ideas about guests or topics, send us an email at cbwsteve@comcast.net. And do continue to keep an eye on what we're doing over the next few weeks. We've got some great episodes coming up. So grateful for the people who want to share their stories here. And with that, just one more huge thank you to Mark and Tatiana for taking the time to share. So we recorded this back in July so that we could catch them before things started to get too crazy for the preparation for this Halloween. And we are looking forward to seeing how 2025 goes. Rain or no rain, I think it's going to be an amazing year for them. So listen, just a reminder to all of you, like Tatiana and Mark, with their outreach to cover reading and books for those who may otherwise not have access to them, giving them out as part of their trick-or-treating, having their fundraiser. By the way, if you go to their fundraiser, we're going to post that information on our Facebook page as well. And you're going to see that not only are they promoting this as a fundraiser, they're contributing as well. They're matching up to $500 donated out of their own family to help cover this. So I think it's a great cause. But we all have causes. We all have some things that we are passionate about. And so please find a way to make a difference in your world this week. God bless you. Have a great week. We'll see you next time on Coffee Breaks with Steve.